What do most Fortune 500 executives have in common? They learned important lessons on the fields and courts of their high school and collegiate sports teams. This is true for both men and women. Ernst & Young found that a whopping 94% of women holding a C-suite position played sports. Their wins and losses shaped their habits and who they would become. Join me on my journey to sit with some of the brightest executives in the world as we discuss how sports shape their professional trajectory. In partnership with Chief Executive Magazine, the voice of America's CEO community, I'm your host, Don Yeager, and this is Corporate Competitor Podcast. With me for today's episode is Becky Bursell. After building and selling a billion-dollar marketing business, she is focused on empowering others to do the same thing. Becky has built and managed teams of more than 500,000 sales representatives in 60 countries, and today she works alongside her mentor, John C. Maxwell, as the Executive Vice President of the John Maxwell Company. I have my notepad ready, and I hope you do too.
I think the most important thing is knowing your team members' why. People don't lack a hope and they don't lack a dream. They lack a leader and a plan. Give them the skill set and actual substance of how to grow themselves, and they will latch onto you and definitely build that trust to where they understand that you have their best interest at heart, because you're not trying to get what you want. You're helping them accomplish their dreams, their hopes, and what they're trying to do for their own family.
Becky, thanks so much for joining us.
Don, thanks for having me. I'm flattered to be here.
Well, you are an inspiration to many. You today serve as Executive Vice President of Personal Growth Solutions, which, by the way, that's the best kind of solution anytime you're involved in personal growth at John Maxwell's company. And I know we share a mutual admiration of John Maxwell.
Yeah. I mean, anybody that's ever heard John Maxwell speak, you leave there thinking we're best friends and he doesn't know it yet. You kind of have a heart for him right away.
Right.
Personal growth has always been my jam, for lack of a technical term.
You don't think your jam is a technical term?
I think it should be. There's an urban dictionary. We could update that, but you just fall in love with growth. And for me, my sense of anxiety comes from sitting still. And I know that's not the case for a lot of people. My life motto is just organized chaos. So it's important to me to grow. I know it's important to a lot of people. Obviously, John Maxwell, between leadership and personal growth, it is everything he's devoted his life to. So I was honored to come on board and help kind of grow and develop some new platforms and be a part of an amazing team. You know this, Don, you're a part of that team as well now. There are very few teams that you can be a part of and even be away from and recognize, man, there's something incredible going on with the synergy of the people that are close to John. I'm just excited to be a part of it.
I love that line. I'm going to take tons of notes. I can tell right now. So I've got my notepad sitting right here. You know, looking at your family dynamic, 2 brothers, 2 sisters, and your parents moved the 5 of you 12 times before you graduated high school in Utah.
Yeah.
You know, let me tell you, part of our research project is we always try to find yearbook pictures of our guests. We can enjoy and have a little fun with the journey they took through school. But you moved so often that yours often had your name in a blank spot. So just FYI.
That's pretty accurate, actually.
But one dynamic about you that really stood out is that you had a commitment that at every move, you tried a new sport. Mm-hmm. Tell me about that experience and what all those kind of athletic moments would ultimately add up to for you.
Yeah, I don't know that it was a conscious choice to pick something new every time I moved. Sometimes it was just relative to where we were. My dad's been in oil and energy, for many, many years. And it just happened to take us from Oregon to California to Utah to Wyoming, back to California. We were just kind of making the rounds across the West Coast. But in Wyoming, my mom put me in gymnastics. I loved it and I was pretty good at it. It took a while for me to have the confidence to be good at those things, but it almost seemed like as soon as I was starting to be good at something, we would move again. And between gymnastics and basketball, but the funny part about Wyoming was that's really when my dad recognized I had some athletic ability. And we had three girls first. So I have an older sister, myself, a younger sister, and then two younger brothers. And my dad loves sports so much, he was not going to wait for those boys to be old enough to play sports and grabbed me and decided, hey, let's go down to the baseball league and see how you do against all these other boys. And there wasn't a girls' softball league at 9, 10 years old. So yeah, he had me in little league trying out and playing baseball with all these other boys. So
And I understand for like 4 straight years, you were the only girl in the league. Is that right?
yes.
Wow.
Yeah. But what was cool was it's almost like other girls started to figure out that it wasn't just for boys. And so then other girls started playing as well. So my dad was really great in the aspect that he never looked at me in any type of box. It was always, the world is yours. And anybody that tells you you can't have it all or try it all, they have their own agenda and it's not yours. So always question those things and always look to your own source to figure out where you're supposed to be in what arena. So it was always a lot of fun. It always gave me permission to be in whatever room I decided I wanted to be in.
There is such a powerful leadership lesson there. What a great lesson from your father. And for you as a leader, as you look at your team, not to consistently put people in boxes just because that's what they've always been, or that from the outside they look like they should fit this role, that willingness to be open and let you go where you have the capacity to go. I assume that's been a part of your leadership model.
Yeah, it has. There definitely has to be a source of talent or drive behind that. I recognize sometimes I want to do things, but there's probably not a lot of talent behind some of those things I want to do. And you see silly trophies in the background too. We joke about those, Dawn. I mean, I like your trophies a lot better. They have signatures and autographs. So my friends joke about me doing things that I'm good at and trying to find things I'm not good at. And what they don't know, the secret is I just don't like doing things I'm not good at. So they don't see those things. And that's kind of the case with business as well. I try to stay in my strength zones and I try to help other people recognize the same thing. So as a coach and as a leader, I think one of the most prominent and important things that we can do is help people recognize their greatest talents, their greatest strengths. Because I truly believe that that level of significance and purpose that we're all chasing and looking for, and even changes in our life, most of the time, our purpose is sourced within those strengths. And most of the time, they have been talents that were within us and we have developed. And sometimes it just takes someone with a fresh set of eyes to come along and recognize that when your parents have always told you you're the smart one or you're the academic one, or the world around you or your boss said, no, you're the technical one, you're not the creative one. And sometimes we start to buy into those boxes. And it's refreshing when someone comes along and says, no, you're greater than just one of those things, and give you an open lane to kind of figure those things out for yourself.
Don't buy into the box. I like it.
Yeah.
And I love the fresh set of eyes. Another great story with your father. I heard you mention this in an event. He takes you golfing at about 8 years old. Can you share his encouragement and what those words did for a young Becky?
Yeah. There were five of us in less than 8 years. My mom decided to get the parenting thing out of the way really quickly, bless her heart. But it was rare that we got alone time with any of our parents. So when my dad would find time to go golfing and he would invite all of us to go, I was usually the only one that had the attention span to spend 4 hours golfing. And I took advantage of it every single time. And there were some great life lessons that I would just get a chance to have really great conversations with my dad. And one of those lessons that stuck with me always was just talking about two types of people. There are those that are okay with sitting on the sidelines and cheering for other people their entire lives. And then there are those that were meant to be in the game. They can handle the pressure. They love that little stress of somebody passing them the ball. They're okay with people watching them, whether that means succeeding or failing. He just at one point looked at me and said, Becky, you're one of those people that are meant to be in the game. So don't let anybody put you on the sideline. And that's always stayed with me. So whether it was golf or it was basketball or it was business, I've always expected for someone to pass me the ball at some point.
I love it. And then it's carried forward for you. You took that lesson from your father, be in the game,
Yeah.
and you encouraged your own children.
I did. Yeah. I mean, you should be interviewing them for the sports side more than me, but now I'm going to sound like the crazy sports mom too. But at a very young age, I wanted them to have those same experiences. There's just so many great life lessons that come with playing on a team and developing yourself and your own talents and skills. So many great lessons with how to manage disappointments and successes that come through sports and athletics. And so all of my children, it was important that they picked what they wanted. My daughter, who I joke, and she'll hate that I tell this story, but the only time she's ever looked at me and said, "I hate you, Mom," was when I was making her try out for different volleyball teams because basketball gave her anxiety. She didn't understand why these girls were on top of her and talking trash, like face to face. And she did not like it. She did not like that closeness interaction that basketball had. And I think I was driving her to her fifth tryout, and she finally was like, "I'm not getting out of the car." I was like, "Yeah, you are." And she's like, "I know I am because you're going to make me, but I hate you right now." And I said, "That's okay. You can, and you'll work through it too. And someday you will appreciate it." And sure enough, she ended up playing Division I volleyball for a college here in Utah. And she was not the most naturally talented kid on the team, but what impressed me the most was she worked harder. And a lot of girls that were starting over her in high school, she ended up starting over them her senior year and just thriving. So it was really fun to see. So, and just to reassure everybody, we're good friends. She loves me. I don't know. There's something to be said about not worrying about how you look doing something and just enjoying the moment.
That's actually really good.
Yeah.
You know, we both have talk tracks around a concept called the value of association, that you're only as good as the people you choose to surround yourself with, and that who you surround yourself with has such great impact on everything that you might pursue or even achieve. It's funny, I was reading about your athletic career, and I know that you actually tried out for soccer only because a best friend did. So here it gives you this all new experience, but it was you sticking with an association, and it actually brought you into a new space. And you said earlier, I don't like doing things I'm not good at, but you're willing to try them for at least a little bit.
Yeah.
You might enter a company and it might look like you're supposed to proceed up this particular ladder, but that willingness, that ability to go be a utility infielder, if you will, and learn a little bit about sales and a little bit about engineering and shipping or whatever it might be, makes you just a more valuable partner within the organization.
Yeah. And I think it also shows that playing a part of a team, it doesn't matter if you're in the limelight. It doesn't matter if you're scoring all the goals or you're in the support and the cheering and the foundational support of that team. All of those roles are crucial. We don't always look at it that way, but being a part of a team and not having to be out in front, there's a lot of lessons that are learned through that process. Probably the best lesson was just getting over myself a little bit too. But if you know me, I love to have fun as well. One of my girlfriends always says my other motto should just be, "It's fun to have fun." And I completely agree with that. Athletics has always been really fun for me, but so has business, where a lot of people think things can be stressful. Those are the moments that I come alive. Like I get excited about it. I can't wait to see how this works and how the problems are solved and who's going to jump in and who's going to shine on the team. And I love those moments of a little bit of stress and it turns into something really great.
That's a great transition. Athletics largely ends for you from a competitive standpoint there in high school, but a few years later, you're starting a family and you accept an invitation into an at-home meeting
Hmm.
where you learned about direct selling, not something that you apparently knew much about previously. And ultimately, you got to be pretty okay at it. He says as he looks at all the trophies behind you.
Pretty okay.
It's a very unique industry. It's a high level of rejection industry. There's a lot there that seems to be defining lines between what makes some people successful and why others don't quite hit the mark. What are some of the roots of success that you found that worked so well for you?
A lot of that had to do with being okay with rejection. I don't know. I feel like somebody's told me no since I was 2 years old. It's not like it stopped me from ever trying or from pursuing or going after my dreams. And in direct sales, it wasn't any different. I also don't know that I understood what I was signing up for as well. And there's something to be said in business about blind spots and not knowing what you don't know. And in some cases, that can hold you back. And in some cases, it can propel you forward. One of my favorite stories of that is Sarah Blakely with Spanx, if you know her story as well. And she didn't know what she didn't know. I mean, she had people that didn't understand why she was going direct to retailers when you're supposed to go to conventions and you're supposed to submit applications and you're supposed to do interviews and you're supposed to struggle for 20 years. And she just decided she was going to go directly to the head buyer at Saks and pull her in the dressing room and try on a pair of Spanx. And that's how she got into the sales and retail and got all of her product in stores. And those blind spots can definitely be beneficial. So a lot of times we try to sit back and learn everything we need to know so that we can look like we're educated in what we're doing. And our saying in our industry was, it's better to have ignorance on fire than knowledge on ice. And sometimes just throwing yourself forward, not knowing where it's going to take you and just trusting in the people around you. I mean, it's important to have great coaching, great mentors who invest in you, and then having that belief system in yourself that, hey, as long as I'm moving forward, it's easier to adjust the sales than to start from zero. For me, that was important in business, was just to keep moving forward.
And how do you, as you grow as a leader and you know this is the model, if we do these things, I mean, I hear it all the time, right, from successful leaders, we know that this works. How do you keep inspiring that next wave of people coming along to not just follow what it is that you're saying, but also maybe challenge you a little bit? I love that. Better to have ignorance on fire than knowledge on ice. How do you keep that ignorance rising to the top when you know this works?
We all hear the stories of knowing your why, and that's what propels you. I think the most important thing is knowing your team members' why and understanding what motivates them.
Mm.
Sales is a funny thing. You know, if I'm talking to somebody and they're motivated by helping their community and serving people, and you know, they have a servant heart for the people around them. If all I'm doing is talking about Lamborghinis and trips to Italy and how much money they can make, I'm probably offending them. I'm not motivating them. So really listening and understanding who your audience is, what motivates them, what's going to push them to action through their own why, not what you want out of them, but what they want out of their experience. And you're really good at keeping that dream and that vision in front of them. People don't lack a hope and they don't lack a dream. They lack a leader and a plan.
Right.
When you can come along and give them the skill set and actual substance of how to grow themselves, and they can see those things being applied and getting better at it, they will latch onto you and definitely build that trust to where they understand that you have their best interest at heart, because you're not trying to get what you want, you're helping them accomplish their dreams, their hopes, and what they're trying to do for their own family.
I love that concept, that discussion. It's important to know our why, but boy, if we don't know our teammates' why, then we won't know what is the best path to inspire them. Was there an example you can share with me and our listeners on how you as a leader drew out from one of your teammates their why?
I think being honest with yourself is the first step, because from an outside standpoint, it definitely looks more honorable to be the person that wants to serve other people, and that's what motivates you. Whereas some people are motivated by the recognition. You know, they're not getting accolades in their life anywhere else, you know, maybe not from home, maybe not from work, maybe not from their kids. You know, most of the time that doesn't happen as a mom. There's one amazing woman who, she was in that category. And even though she would vocally say that her motivation, more freedoms and time with her family, and those things I think were true to the core, what she was really motivated by, what made her get out of her comfort zone, was people recognizing her talents and getting those accolades. It took her about 3 years to get to the place where she could honestly say that out loud. And the rest of the time, you just kind of, just like kids, you let them experience things the hard way until they come back around and say, okay, you were right. And I'm just going to be honest with myself and I'm going to move forward and maybe actually realize that this is where I want to be. But that happened. And when that happened, what she had been trying to do for 3 years, she did in the next 3 months. And it was just releasing that and being honest with yourself, because there is no right or wrong in what motivates you. It's just recognizing it so that you can clear your own path. and be able to accomplish what you need to.
You know, I have a couple small companies, 15 to 18 employees at different times. And, they do the 5 love languages that many couples use to try to help learn how to speak the language of your partner. And a couple of years ago, we discovered there was one of those for business as well. And we actually went through an exercise to try to figure out, like, what was it? And it was interesting. I, as a leader, many of my teammates I'd had working with me for years, I was wrong on more than half of what I thought was the motivator in their life, because I was more projecting myself onto them than really growing to understand them. And ultimately, I learned a lot. They learned that they could actually speak honestly about what they were driven by. To your exact point, it changed the dynamic.
Absolutely, it does. And it allows them sometimes to have the freedom. And when you give them that safe space to say, it doesn't matter what you're motivated by, I'm giving you permission to be motivated by these things. Now let's get those things accomplished. And what's great is sometimes those things will change too.
Right.
Not to keep referring back to trophies, but that recognition, whatever motivated you in the beginning, it changes through time. You grow as a person, you accomplish those things, and then you push yourself to, you move from success to significance. And where we're at in life now, it is so much more fun to play any little part in helping other people recognize their talents and capabilities than anything that we personally accomplish. I mean, it is the most addictive part of what we do. You get to play any little role in helping them see that in themselves. It's so worth any time or effort you put in.
I love it. I listened to a presentation you made in which you said the first part of your life you were focused on perfectionism instead of purpose. But now that you understand perfection doesn't really exist, now you're able to really focus instead on an extension of our conversation here, on the purpose of what really is your driver. Tell me, how did that become clear to you?
Through a lot of nonsense. It became clear through accomplishing everything I had set out to do and still not feeling full.
Mm.
I just felt like I had been chasing things that were not as significant as they needed to be. And I had been focused on goals instead of growth. And that's really what the changing point for me was. And John Maxwell says it best: you're playing a finite game, there is a finish line. And when you cross that, you're never satisfied.
Now what?
Yeah, that's what I've been doing my whole life. It's like, I accomplished this. Now I need to find a new game because I've been playing a finite game the whole time. But when you recognize there's an infinite game and that growth is a part of that infinite game, you stop worrying about where the finish line is and you just start enjoying the journey and recognizing the process is the most beautiful part of the whole experience.
Totally agree. I read that you offer your own definition of success,
Mhm.
which I think is important for all of us to know for ourselves. How do you define success? But I love yours. I've never heard anything like it before. You define success for you as the ability to have a surplus of time, which is funny because we all feel like the one thing we don't have enough of is time. There's the potential of falling into a trap when you have lots of money but no time. Tell us more about what you mean here.
Yeah, I think all of us have witnessed, whether it's through our own life or people around us, there are people that have a lot of money and they have absolutely no time. And whether that's through no fault from themselves, whether that's through expectations around them or it's the own expectations they've set on themselves, they're not able to enjoy the process along the ways. And then we also know people that have a lot of time and no money. And from experience, that's not very fun either. You limit yourself in options in both categories. So for me, waking up every day, money is no longer a stress in your life, and you get to dictate your 24 hours a day. That to me is the definition of success. Whether you choose to stay busy or you choose to invest in other people or you choose to serve the people around you, however you choose to spend that time, to me, that's a level of happiness that most people don't recognize is achievable.
Wow, I love it. One of the questions we ask almost every guest on this podcast really comes back to a real passion of mine, which is team building.
Mhm.
It's funny to me over the years, having left athletics and ended up in a lot of business conversations, how many executives use the word team to describe their organization. This is my team, me and my team. But the truth is, they're not a team. What they are is a group of individual contributors, many of whom are often competing against each other. And all they happen to have in common is a business card.
Yeah.
And you've been on teams athletically, you've built teams in business. You're building another one right now. What advice would you give to a leader trying to take a group of individual contributors and turn them into what you know to be a team?
Leading a team can be tricky in the aspect that I would never ask anything of my team that I'm not willing to do myself. Understanding that leading by example is the best example. As cliche as it sounds, you can't lead from out front or from the back, honestly. I mean, you've got to be able to plow the way, but then also be there experiencing all of those things. Otherwise, you don't really have an eye on what the team is doing or what they're experiencing. If you're too far out front or you're too far behind, you're not really seeing what their needs or even the expectations are. The second thing is just that communication. If you're setting expectations once and then expecting everybody to run, you're going to be very disappointed in the process. Painting a vision is not something you do one time. It's something that you have to constantly do. It's a full-time job in itself. You've got to inspect what you expect. And the only way to do that is to be a part of that team, to be a part of that process and that journey, and that you're growing just as much. The best way you can build trust in your organization is you've proven it. You're the best rainmaker in that organization as far as production and growing and producing. And it helps everybody want to catch up to you. And then you can actually inspire people continually along the way.
Yeah.
The number one responsibility of a leader is to create other leaders. You're investing a majority of your time in a certain amount of people, but those people, the expectation is that they're doing the same for their organizations, their teams as well. So it's not a micromanaging aspect. It's just an investment of time and knowing where to spend your time. I think the most frustration for leaders is just not understanding where to spend your time. That again is something you're investing in and recognizing the potential in certain people, and that the best ROIs are the choices of the people that you're investing in, knowing that the expectation is not being a reservoir, it's being a river. I'm going to invest in you, who's going to flow into someone else and pour into other people.
Right. The number one responsibility of a leader is to create other leaders. You do sound more and more like John Maxwell the longer we talk.
We learned from the best, that's for sure.
Yes, we have. So I've spent 30 years in journalism asking amazing coaches, athletes, many business leaders, if they can identify one habit, a part of their daily routine that they built in that they think gives them a competitive advantage.
Mhm.
Can you think of the Becky Bursell habit that is so important to you that you think has played a role in the success that you've developed?
Yeah, and it's definitely a habit that has grown and progressed through time. This might even reflect back on that perfectionism thing too. There were many, many years where at the end of the day, I would reflect on that checklist of things that didn't get accomplished, and it would turn into a whole new checklist the next day. I learned a few years ago to focus more on the wins and to sign your name at the end of a day. And I actually have a journal that's separate from everything else that I do. And that journal is not about what I ate that day. It's not about even the lessons I learned. All it is the one thing I was proud of that day, whether that was an accomplishment or it was getting everything done. There are days that are so crazy that I've written in that journal, I did not kill anyone today. And that was my greatest accomplishment. And if you knew the day I had, that was the most proud moment. But that's also a level of honesty with myself and saying, you know what, there's something to be said for not losing your mind today and just keeping your wits about you. And then there are other days where it's like, I have nothing to put in this journal. And then there's days where you look at it and you're like, how did one person accomplish that? You have to be able to sign your name at the end of the day, whether it's good or it's bad, and recognize that that is what makes life beautiful, is that it comes in every shade and every color. But in business, especially, you just finally get to a place where you recognize your head doesn't hit that pillow until something that you can be proud of has been accomplished and that you are proud to sign your name to.
Do you ever go back and read those journals?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm excited for someday for my children to read those journals. They have inherited from me some good things and some not so great things. And one of the not so great things is it's very rare that I have to be on their case because they are so hard on themselves. So giving them permission to be faulted is really my number one priority as a parent for them, understanding that that is hardwired into them. We spend the first 18, 20 years of their lives helping them accomplish things. And then I feel like I'm spending the next 20 years of their lives helping them unravel all of those things that we hardwired into them. But business is the exact same way. I mean, you're going to spend 10, 20 years just running and running and running and not reflecting. And if you can get good at spending those last few moments of every day just reflecting on where I spent my time, where it was most beneficial, and what I can be proud of and what I'm not proud of. You can't have the good without the bad.
I love it. Now, I also know you have a great podcast, Greatest Version of You. I love the title because it comes from that belief that happiness doesn't come from achieving goals. It comes from becoming the greatest version of you. Episode 4 of yours, you actually had John Maxwell.
Mhm.
So how can people find you? Other ways that people can find you?
Yeah, I mean, on social media, just look for Becky Bursell, and then our website, Greatest Version of You. You can actually reach the podcast, the blogs, speaking engagements, all of the events, all the good stuff. You can go directly to the website.
Becky Bursell, I love you. I love the opportunity to be your teammate, and I am grateful that today you were a corporate competitor.
Well, I'm just honored to be a part of this, Don. And every chance we get a chance to be together, I learn something new, and your energy is just infectious. So I love the time we have together.
Flipping back through my notes, I took a number of habits that I'm actually going to build into my ongoing routine from this conversation with Becky. But the first one, maybe the one that really caught my attention, was her statement that you need to sign your name at the end of every day, and that she has a little journal that's not about what she ate that day. It's not about friends or family. It's about the accomplishment she's most proud of from the day. And the idea that there's a moment of reflection that comes with that. I don't do that. And I can see, listening to her, what incredible value that would bring into my life. And the idea that if I sign my name to it, I'm actually bringing closure to that day and commitment to what I'm going to do next. I also thought it was extraordinary for her to talk about the idea that she early on in life realized that where she was best was in her strength zone, and that her funny line, she says, I don't like to do things I'm not good at. That's me also. And my guess is for many of our listeners, it is equally true. Becky was encouraging to me just to enjoy my strength zone, get better at my strength so that I can continue to grow. I also love the need to be honest, to find a way to get your team, those who are working with you, to be honest with themselves about what drives them. That it's always easy to say, I'm driven by being in service of other people. Well, that sounds good, but the truth is you might be driven by a need for recognition, a need for acknowledgement. Whatever it is that you really can learn about your teammate will allow you to serve them, help them achieve their goal. And when that happens, greatness is on the way. She was an incredible interview and a great champion of this discussion. And I can't wait to go apply some of what I learned today. If you could share one habit, one thing you've done consistently that allowed you to separate yourself from your competitors, what would it be? In my 30-year career, 2,500 of the greatest athletes, coaches, and leaders answered that question for me.
This is Don Yeager, who did that that article I was telling you about.
Don, Dave Sims with Coach K. How you doing?
Hey, Don. How you doing, my man? Great, sir. How
What they gave to me is what I'm giving to you in my online course, Journey to Greatness. Through engaging storytelling and on-demand videos, you will learn the 16 habits that will jumpstart your personal growth. I I will instruct you on how to apply these winning characteristics to your life through custom workbook exercises. We are slashing the price for our podcast listeners. Lifetime access to Journey to Greatness is normally $399, but for our podcast listeners, it will be $49 with the code podcast at checkout. Click the banner on corporatecompetitorpodcast.com to enroll. Thanks for listening to the show. I would be so grateful if you left us a rating and a review. We will be rolling out a new episode every Wednesday. To be the first to listen, subscribe to the podcast on our website, corporatecompetitorpodcast.com. Plus, as a thank you gift, you will receive a free chapter from one of my best-selling books on the habits of high-performing teams. Stay in touch by connecting with me on social media at Don Yeager, Yaeger, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Until next week, I appreciate you.